Alright guys, and welcome back to our Kart Class podcast. I'm your host, 18-time Australian champion David Serra, and today I'm discussing tyre management. So the last two races in Australian karting, with our AKC in Perth and then the AKC shakedown at Newcastle, tyre management played a big role in some of the final results. Now, a lot is determined by how hard or how soft the compound of tyre that you're driving on. It also has a lot to do with the track surface itself, so whether it's abrasive or it's a smooth surface, and also the temperature of the day does have a bit to play with how tyres are going to wear. The first thing we want to try and look at when we come into tyre management is that drivers need to understand they can't push 100% on these soft compound tyres throughout the whole race meeting. So sometimes you might be doing qualifying, 4 heats in a final. It might add up to 60 to 75 laps of racing. And when you've got a really soft compound tyre and you start to overdrive it and they start to overheat, that's when you start to see tyres starting to grain. Now, it's very hard for a tyre to grain and then all of a sudden start to look clean again. So it's at that point where you want to push hard in qualifying to get your ultimate lap time in. And then if you've got the opportunity to, in the heat races, maybe bring it back like 10% of your driving. So you don't drive qualifying laps in all your heat races, but then leading into a final, you've actually got a little bit up your sleeve because you've got a little bit more tread pattern than what your other competitors do. Now, what we saw when we came to Perth race was that the track itself was quite abrasive and it was quite sandy in some sections. So what that does is, if you think about grating up some cheese, for example, if you were to slide the cheese across the grater, it's going to start to grate the cheese. So cheese is going to start to fall apart. If you were to do it on a smooth surface, like just on a kitchen bench, not much is going to happen to the cheese. So it's just going to sort of flatten out. Now, if we look into our tyres, when we're driving on a smooth surface, even if we're sliding around the corners, yes, it will wear them out a little bit. But if you start to slide on an abrasive surface, going back to our cheese grater example, is that when you start to slide and that tyre starts to grate, that's your tread that's starting to wear away. Now, once you wear away that tread, you can't then get it back. So it's very important that in our heat races that we don't over push the limits and we don't slide as much, so we don't grate those tyres as much. Where we see the two instances where people start to overdrive is into the braking zones. So they start to slide the car on the braking zones. Again, sliding, grating those tyres, tread starting to disappear. But also they're getting too excited on the throttle. So they jump back on the acceleration too quickly. Again, start to power slide out of a corner. Again, starting to grate those tyres. Our tread start to go missing again. So just drivers need to be mindful that in a heat race, you might not want to push 100% for the whole race if you're not under pressure or you can't catch the pack in front of you. Just hold position, try and save something for the later parts of the weekend. The second part, which can cause tyre degradation and we need to concentrate on it, is our tyre pressures. So it can go both ways, being either too low or too high, but generally we see it when we're too high in the pressures and they start to overheat. Now, when you look at a tyre and it starts to overheat, you're going to see it actually graining. So it's going to have like these little wiggly lines in the tyres, and that's normally a sign that the tyres are overheating and they're starting to slide as well. So just be careful on not sliding the kart too much. If you do have higher pressure, obviously you're going to see lap times peaking around 50 or 60% of the race, and then if it starts to drop away in the last few laps, that's a sign that you're a little bit too high in the tyre pressures. Back to our driving style, and it's just about not throwing the kart around too much. So you might find yourself getting that extra tenth of a second on a lap by braking a little bit later and having to back it in a little bit. But when it comes back to that driving style, it's driving a little bit smoother, a little bit straighter. Like I said, powering a little bit later when the steering was a bit straighter. These are the things that are going to help you out a lot more over the journey of a race weekend. So just be mindful on not throwing the kart around on entry or on exit as well. The last thing I'm going to touch on when it comes to tyre management is our camber in the front end. So it's a bit more related to the setup of the car. Now, if we find that we are having to run quite a lot of negative or quite a lot of positive camber in our tyres to get that ultimate speed, what we might find is that after a few sessions, the tyres start to wear out either the inside or the outside of the tyres. And so you might find that you start the weekend with that negative camber because it's faster. But then throughout the race weekend, you have to start standing those tyres up, because otherwise, if it starts wearing out the inside of the tyres too aggressively and the longer the weekend goes, it's going to keep wearing out towards the middle of the tyre. So you don't have a lot of tread pattern left. So you might better just stand up those tyres a little bit, increase your camber into the positive, or at least to no camber at all, just so the tyre wears more evenly as well. So that's something you can do with your setup of the kart to help that tyre management from qualifying all the way through to the final race. Hopefully those tips have given you a little bit of a heads up when it comes to tyre management, because the driver can alter how much grip they have when they're driving, but also from a setup point of view, our mechanics or our parents, they can also have a big effect on how the tyre is going to be worn throughout the race weekend. And as we saw at these last couple of races, that if you did have a slightly better tyre than your competitors, it was upwards of about 3 to 4 tenths per lap that we were seeing in the finals from other drivers. Now, whether they had DNF'd the race, so they did have a tyre advantage, but other drivers that you could see were driving a little bit under their full capability, they came back so strongly in the longer laps as well. So from a 12-lap heat race to all of a sudden a 20-lap final, and from where we qualified it, for example, I think X30 qualified at a 46.2 or 3 in Newcastle, and then that same the same group of drivers, some of them were back into the 47.1s and 47.3s when it comes to the final. So almost a 1 second loss over the course of 5 races. So again, if you can just manage that so it's only a 6/10 drop off, well then all of a sudden you're gaining 3/10 a lap over 20 laps. That's 6 seconds overall advantage, which is a lot. So hopefully these tips are giving you something to work with. These are things that we do discuss in our programs as well that we have online. So tyre management and driving it nice and straight and how to brake as well, that's in our Champions program. But if you're a parent looking to try and maximize your kids driving and you think you're letting them down a little bit, then our kart setup program is sort of more guided towards the mechanics side of things, where we make the right adjustments at the right times as well. So I'll keep you updated with how things are tracking on our next episodes. If you guys want to know a particular subject, want me to discuss, just shoot it through to info@kartclass.com. Happy to record a podcast for you guys. Take care. We'll speak to you guys soon. Cheers.